They had always been just friends. That's what everyone believed, and for a long time, Emma and Daniel believed it too. They met during their sophomore year at the University of Oregon, sharing a psychology class and a love for indie music. From that first casual conversation in the campus cafe to road trips along the West Coast and countless late-night calls about everything and nothing, their friendship only grew stronger. Emma moved to Portland after graduation and became an art teacher at a cozy community center downtown. Daniel headed north to Seattle, landing a marketing job at a growing tech company. Life moved on. Seasons changed. They each dated other people, went through breakups, career changes, even heartbreaks, but through it all, they remained a constant in each other's lives. The kind of bond that doesn't shake easily. Yet lately, something had begun to shift. Emma felt it in the quiet moments, like the way Daniel's voice softened when he asked if she was okay, or how his name lit up her phone screen and made her heart flutter just a little too much. Daniel felt it too. He found himself thinking about her late at night, wondering what it would feel like to hold her hand instead of just hearing her voice. Still, neither of them dared speak it aloud. It was safer to stay in the comfort of just friends. One rainy Friday evening, Daniel called and said, "I'm driving down. Just need a change of scenery." It wasn't unusual. He'd done it before, an easy 4-hour drive to Emma's apartment in Northeast Portland, where a warm meal and her calming presence always waited. But this time, it felt different. Emma cleaned the place like she was expecting someone special. She even lit candles, telling herself it was for ambience, not for him. When he walked in, damp from the rain, smiling like always, she felt her breath catch. The city was quiet outside, the kind of moody Pacific Northwest evening that made everything feel closer, softer. They poured wine and curled up on the couch, a movie playing in the background, though neither really watched it. Daniel leaned back, his arm resting casually along the back of the couch, fingertips barely grazing her shoulder. Her heart raced. Their knees touched. A familiar closeness, but tonight it felt charged, like something long buried was slowly rising to the surface. They talked about everything, her students, his stressful deadlines, their mutual friends getting engaged, and that one song they both still played when they missed college. At one point, Emma caught Daniel looking at her. Really looking. His eyes didn't dart away this time. He held her gaze. She swallowed hard. Said nothing. Smiled faintly, though she wasn't sure why. That look stayed with her. Long after he went to bed in the guest room, she lay awake replaying the night. Was it just in her head? Was he thinking the same? Across the hall, Daniel sat on the edge of the bed, running a hand through his hair, silently cursing himself for not leaning in when he had the chance. That one moment on the couch, when their shoulders touched and the air between them thickened with longing, he'd almost said something. Almost. But he was scared. Scared of ruining what they had. Scared she didn't feel the same. Yet neither of them would sleep that night. Because deep down, both Emma and Daniel knew that something had shifted, and whatever it wasn't going away. The days after Daniel's visit passed slowly, almost painfully, for Emma. The apartment felt quieter, like his presence had left behind something more than just an empty coffee mug and a folded blanket on the guest bed. She kept replaying that night, the wine, the way his knee touched hers, and most of all, the look in his eyes that lingered too long. It had stirred something deep inside her, something she'd buried for years behind the safety of friendship. But nothing happened. He didn't kiss her. He didn't say anything. And now, she was left wondering if she had imagined the whole thing. Daniel, too, was distracted. Back in his apartment in Seattle, surrounded by deadlines and emails, he couldn't focus. He'd stare at his phone, typing out a message to Emma and then deleting it before sending. He wanted to tell her how hard it had been not to touch her face that night, not to lean in when her eyes looked so soft and inviting. But the words failed him. Every time he thought of risking their friendship, he backed away. One evening, about 2 weeks later, Emma's phone buzzed with a message from Daniel, thinking of coming down again this weekend. You around? Her fingers hovered over the keyboard, heart racing. Sure. Come by. I'll make pasta. That Saturday night felt heavier. Not uncomfortable, but filled with an energy that neither of them acknowledged. The pasta was warm, the music playing low, a quiet jazz playlist Daniel had made her years ago. They sat on the floor of her living room, sharing wine again, just like the last time. He asked about her painting. She asked about his job. It was casual on the surface, but everything underneath was raw and restless. And then, somewhere between a laugh and a silence, he asked softly, do you ever wonder what would have happened if we met at a different time? Emma blinked. The question hung in the air like fog. She looked at him, the way she always did when he asked something that wasn't just small talk. All the time, she whispered, barely audible. Daniel's gaze dropped to her lips, then back to her eyes. He leaned in, just slightly, but then stopped. Neither moved. Neither breathed. It was like the whole world had paused for them, waiting to see what would happen next. But nothing did. He leaned back. She looked away. The tension broke, quietly. Without a sound. They both laughed a little, nervous and tired, like two people standing on the edge of something they were too scared to name. Daniel left early the next morning. Emma walked him to his car, arms crossed against the cold. He hugged her, a little tighter than usual. His hands lingered on her back before he let go. She smiled and waved as he drove off, but her chest ached. In a way that felt familiar, like longing with no place to go. That night, she curled up in bed, unable to sleep, the sound of rain tapping her window like a memory. Meanwhile, Daniel pulled over halfway through his drive home, staring at his phone again. He wanted to turn around. He wanted to call her. He wanted to say, I think I'm in love with you. But he didn't. Instead, he drove on, trying to convince himself that being her best friend was enough. It wasn't. And they both knew it. But sometimes, fear keeps people standing in the doorway of something beautiful, afraid to step inside. That night, neither of them said what they truly felt. And both would wake up the next day haunted by the silence. The silence between Emma and Daniel had stretched too long. Days turned into weeks, and the calls that once filled their nights became quick replies and unread messages. Emma tried to distract herself, throwing herself into work, painting. More than ever, staying late at the community center just to avoid going home to the quiet. But it didn't help. She missed him. Not just the texts or the laughs, she missed him. The way his voice softened when he asked about her day. The way he always remembered the little things, like how she liked her coffee or that she hated sleeping with the door open. Meanwhile, Daniel tried to move on. He started seeing someone in Claire, a charming woman from his office who was kind and easy to be around. But Claire wasn't Emma. She didn't know his favorite record or the way he liked his eggs. He smiled around Claire, but his mind wandered to Portland more than he wanted to admit. Then came the invitation. The close mutual friend was having an engagement party in Vancouver. Emma debated skipping it. She didn't feel like pretending everything was fine. But something in her heart, maybe hope, maybe curiosity, made her say yes. She drove up on a gray Friday afternoon, heart pounding the closer she got. When she walked into the cozy little event hall, she scanned the room quickly, and there he was. Daniel, standing across the room, laughing at something someone said, glass in hand, looking both familiar and suddenly distant. Their eyes met, and for a moment, the noise of the room disappeared. He crossed the space between them slowly, as if unsure whether he still had the right to. "Hey," he said gently. She nodded, the words caught in her throat. Later, after small talk and too many polite smiles, they found themselves outside. On the balcony, away from the music and the crowd. The city lights shimmered below, and the cool breeze carried the kind of silence that held everything they hadn't said. Daniel looked at her, really looked. "You look beautiful," he said. His voice was raw, quiet. "You look tired," Emma replied, forcing a smile that didn't quite reach her eyes. He stepped closer. "I've missed you," he said. His eyes said more than the words. She didn't look away this time. "I'm tired of pretending," she whispered. And that was all it took. No more careful distance. No more hiding behind friendship. He leaned in, slowly, like he was afraid she might vanish, and when their lips met, it wasn't rushed. It was soft and aching, full of years of tension and all the things they never said. But before the moment could settle into something beautiful, a voice cut through the night. "Daniel?" Emma froze. He turned, and there stood Claire, clutching a glass of wine and looking like someone who had just walked into a conversation she was never meant to hear. The air changed instantly. Claire's eyes bounced between them, confusion turning into quiet devastation. Emma stepped back, heart racing. She looked at Daniel, his face pale, mouth slightly open, like he didn't know how to speak. Claire wasn't just a date anymore. Emma could see it in the way her eyes searched his for answers. Emma didn't wait for him to explain. She couldn't. She turned and walked away, her heels clicking softly against the floor, her heart breaking with every step. Daniel didn't follow. Not yet. And maybe that hurt even more. Because in that one night, the line they had been afraid to cross finally shattered, but so did the illusion that love was simple. It never had been. Emma didn't cry until she was back in her hotel room. The door clicked shut behind her, and she sank onto the edge of the bed, heart pounding, eyes staring at nothing. She wasn't even sure what hurt more, seeing Claire, or realizing that Daniel hadn't said anything. No explanations. No apologies. Just silence. She had let her heart open, even for a second, and it had cracked wide open. Over the next few days, she ignored his texts. "Can we talk? Please call me. Emma, I'm sorry." But she couldn't respond. Not yet. Not when her chest still felt tight and her voice caught in her throat every time she thought about that kiss. And what followed? And Daniel? He ended things with Claire the very next day. He told her the truth, not the messy version, but the real one, that his heart hadn't been hers to hold. That it had belonged to someone else for a long, long time. Claire had seen it in his eyes, even before he said the words. She didn't cry. She just nodded and walked away. Some goodbyes don't need loud endings. A few days later, Daniel drove down to Portland. Again. This time with no excuses, no pretending he just needed a break. He stood at Emma's front door, the same one he'd walked through so many times as a friend, but now, he wasn't here to play it safe. When she opened the door, she didn't speak. She just looked at him, her arms crossed like a shield, her eyes tired but still beautiful in the way that made his chest ache. "I ended it," he said quietly. "With Claire. It wasn't fair to her. And it wasn't fair to you. Or to me." Emma's eyes welled with tears, but she didn't let them fall. She stayed quiet. Let him speak. "I've been lying to myself for years," he continued, his voice low, almost breaking. "Telling myself I could be your best friend and that would be enough. But it's not. I love you, Em. I think I've loved you since that first week. In college, when you laughed at me for putting ketchup on everything." A tear slipped down her cheek then, and she quickly wiped it away. "You think I haven't loved you all this time," she whispered. "I loved you when you left flowers on my doorstep after my dad's funeral. I loved you when you drove 5 hours just to help me move into this apartment. I loved you when I shouldn't have, and I still do." They stared at each other. Hearts wide open, no more hiding behind the comfort of friendship. Emma stepped forward slowly, her voice soft. "That night you visited. I thought you were going to kiss me." Daniel nodded. "I wanted to. I was scared." "Scared of what?" "Of losing you." She looked up at him, a sad smile forming through her tears. "You're not losing me," she said. "You're finally choosing me." And then she reached for his hand, the same hand that had held hers 100 times before, but now, it meant something more. When they kissed this time, it wasn't tentative or filled with fear. It was warm, slow, and steady, like coming home after years of being lost. The rain began to fall outside, soft and quiet, as if the world itself had paused to witness something finally falling into place. They stood there for a long time, just holding each other. No need for more words. Because this time, it wasn't almost. It wasn't timing or hesitation. It was real. It was love. And it was finally theirs.